mentioned that our temptation is to seek lesser pleasures. Are we really responding to demonic or satanic substitution here, where we're being told in our spirits, oh, no, the really good stuff's over here, where the fun stuff really is?
When you go back to Eden, you realize that Satan has always wanted to take God's place. And when you think of pleasures, I've actually been doing some studying on addictions because of something else that I'm writing. All those addictions, whether it's alcohol or gambling or sex or whatever, all of them make the same promises that God makes. Namely, follow me and you'll be fulfilled and have happiness. So they're out there competing with God, and the problem is many are believing their lies because in the end the pleasure and the fulfillment isn't there. But God's word is true. He does give us pleasure and fulfillment.
Perhaps there's no area in which this lie is more blatantly obvious than in the area of sexuality, where people feel like they have these legitimate needs they wish to meet, and they can't meet them for some reason or other, so they want to meet them anyway.
Exactly.
With whomever. And they feel that choice is a clear one in which they must disobey God in order to fulfill what they feel is this legitimate need.
The reason your comment is so to the point is because a distant relative of ours, I learned today, this young lady has moved in with her boyfriend and is living with him. Now, here's the point that needs to be made, is that we do not see the consequences of disobedience immediately. It appears as if this is more pleasurable, more fulfilling, more whatever than God could ever be. But in the end, it isn't. And the big thing we have to try to get our young people to see is that following God's way is indeed best. And you talk to young people who are sexually charged and they have these desires and so forth, and what we need to try to get across to them is this: it is better to be frustrated in obedience to Christ than to be fulfilled in disobeying God, because in the end, those pleasures will not keep their promises.
Now, it does take a certain level of spiritual maturity to understand that God's pleasures are greater than the pleasures that we think are so great. How do we get ourselves from where we are to that level of maturity where we can understand that?
I think we have to teach our young people at an early age that they can delight in God and that following God does not shortchange them. You see, you take the average college student, oftentimes, the Christian college student now, he looks at the world and actually thinks he's been gypped. He thinks to himself, I'm being shortchanged. What we need to do is to convince them that that is not the case. And that's a tough thing to do. I do agree with that. But ultimately, we have to convince them that we follow God's way not just because it's right, though that would be reason enough, but it's also best. Best for God means best for us.
Now, it seems that an awful lot of Christian young people, and maybe even Christian older people, have kind of walked away from that sense that what is God's will really is best. What do we do as a church in toto these days in which we have syncretized to the culture so completely that there's really almost no differentiation in the behavior of a Christian young person and any other young person?
Dave, I don't think that there's just one answer to that. There are a number of different streams that have to flow into that particular fountain. I think, for example, our families, and we have to start further back, because even the young woman that I referred to a moment ago, she grew up without a father. So you have that whole thing that contributes to immorality and so forth. So what we need to do is to try to work with our families and bring real solidarity in that regard, so that we can begin to teach our young people properly. Secondly, our churches need to confront these issues and lovingly do teaching on doctrinal matters, on moral matters. We need prayer because we recognize that we are in a war. We need the solidarity of other churches. So all of this converging together, I think, actually constitutes the answer to your question. It is possible for young people to live pure today. It is possible for us to escape the pollution of the world, as it says in 2 Peter chapter 1. But it is not easy. It is possible, but isn't easy. And my contention is, let's work at it and let's not give up hope.
And the ultimate ideal is that God's pleasures and our pleasures converge and become one and the same. Now, many would say, sure, Pastor Lutzer, in heaven, no problem. But I'm a long way from that. What do I do now?
At thy right hand there are pleasures forevermore. And I don't think that's just heaven, that's even here. Delight thyself also in the Lord. The challenge is to find God sufficient, even in this very confusing, torn age.
So this is a process, not an event, isn't it?
It is a process, and it is also at times an event, because when people finally give up trying to find pleasure, once they get enough feedback from the world and realize that its promises are bankrupt, they can then turn to God and find a sense of forgiveness and wholeness that the world cannot offer.
Thanks, Dr. Lutzer. Tomorrow, tune in for Dr. Lutzer's last of the 10 lies about God, the lie that God helps those who help themselves. Dr. Erwin Lutzer has concluded the lie that we must choose between God's will and our happiness, the 9th of 10 lies about God and why you might already be deceived. Running to Win comes to you from Chicago's Moody Church to help you find God's roadmap for your race of life. 10 Lies About God can be yours as a series on CD, cassette, or MP3. For full information, call toll-free 1-800-215-5001. That's 1-800-215-5001. Your letters to Dr. Lutzer are always welcome at Running to Win, 1609 North LaSalle Boulevard, Chicago, Illinois, 60614. Visit our website at runningtowin.org. And don't forget, this broadcast is supported by listeners like you. Tomorrow we begin a look at lie number 10, that God helps those who help themselves. This is Dave McAllister. Join us tomorrow for our next Running to Win.